Okay. So if everyone can introduce themselves with their first and last name. So I'm Barbara and I'm going to be the facilitator.
My name's Morgan Robinson and I am just a participant.
My name is Carrie Grove and I am just a participant.
I'm Andrew Grove and I'm just a participant. I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Okay, so this is for my diversity class. I'm being asked to do a privilege assignment. The purpose of this assignment is to learn and recognize how power and privilege can affect our lives, even when we're not aware of it is happening. This exercise is about privilege. Every privilege on the list is enjoyed by some group, but not others. For instance, cisgender, able-bodied folks can go to the bathroom in any public restroom, but transgender and or people with disabilities cannot. Another example is cisgender males can generally leave the house at any time of the day and not fear they will be raped if they are caught alone at night. Interestingly, privilege tends to be invisible to those who are privileged. That is when we receive privilege based on race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or other factors. We tend not to recognize that others do not enjoy the same privileges we are born into. In this exercise, we will be looking at a list of privileges. When you see the list of privileges, circle the ones you already have and put a note by each one to say how you got that privilege. For instance, one way to acquire privileges is to be literally born into them, such as being born to two parents with white skin, or being born in a country that isn't currently being bombed, or being born anatomically male and actually feeling like a male person, as opposed to feeling like a female who's born in a male's body. Another way to acquire privilege is luck, such as being born to parents who aren't abusive or who give you inheritance. After circling each privilege, noting how you got that privilege, each of us will choose a piece of paper that has an amount of money written on the back of it. That money will be yours to spend on privileges. You may spend that money on however many privileges you can afford, but know that whatever privileges you do not buy are lost to you forever. We cannot talk about how much money each of us have until the activity is over. Each privilege costs $100. I will set a timer for 5 minutes, and you must have bought your privileges by the time the 5 minutes is up. Then we will spend 10 minutes having a group discussion about each of our discussions regarding what we feel are most important privileges we can afford. Okay. So Andy is a 3. Carrie is a 4, and Morgan's a 2, and I'm a 1. Yeah. Okay.
Let's open this discussion.
Okay. So now we're going to discuss the question. So what was this activity like for you? And how did this activity make you feel?
So this activity was pretty eye-opening, I'd say. It's a lot of things that we take for granted. I guess maybe not we, but me particularly, just being a regular white female. Like there was some of them that you wouldn't think of to relate to. Like for example, one was just being like counted as a citizen in a country in general. And then there was, sorry. There was another one that really stuck out to me, and it was super simple. Let me look at it real quick. Oh, it was just being able to discuss and have access to multiple family planning options. Like that seems like something that should be pretty generic. You know, it's a family, everyone has a family, doesn't matter color, race, ethnicity, the whole shebang, what religion you have. But to think that some people can't talk to others about how to bring a whole family together is kind of crazy to me. So it kind of put me in a pretty humble position, I guess, would say is how that made me feel.
Okay, would anybody else like to say how the activity, what they liked, was like for them, and then how did this activity make them feel?
I completely agree with Morgan. It's really an eye opener because we really don't think about how like privileged we are. Some of the things like just being able to like travel or to show our ID and have not having a fear that we're gonna be like rejected, ridiculed, or harassed just because of like if it's our gender, if it's our race, like just that fear that's put into us because of how privileged we are. I guess I don't know if that makes sense. Um, but it was a real eye opener because you really don't see like how privileged you are until you're put in like these situations.
Andy, would you like to go? What was this activity like for you, and what did this activity make? How did this activity make you feel? You're muted.
Okay. Can you please state the question again? I apologize to everybody.
Okay. What was this activity like for you, and how did this activity make you feel?
This activity, interacting with everybody right now on the Zoom, is very informative, and I'm glad that I'm on it. Hopefully, I can learn and grow from everybody and their opinions, and I can't wait to hear more about what everyone else has to say. Thank you.
Okay. So this activity was informative, eye-opening, kind of like what everybody else said. It was just something that like you don't think about as much. Being the color of skin that I am, I'm a little bit more privileged than other people. It kind of makes me feel that I have the privilege, but not thinking that I do at some point. It's privilege that others do not have. So it just makes me feel a little emotional, digging down a little bit deeper into the privileges that I do have rather than privileges that others do not have. So the next question is, how did you go about picking privileges?
So for my privileges, let me look again because I should have written them down and I didn't. I put down being a citizen of any country, not being a stateless person. Whenever I was going through, I feel like that's a very important thing to have, belonging to something or to someone, whether it be like a country or an individual, president, whatever. Because that's the first step in being able to voice your opinion, and to get any information or whatnot that you would need. Not maybe information, help. There's the word. I also chose number 39, which was you could be expected to be paid equally for the work you do and not paid less because of your gender. Because that's something that, even though, we're here in the great old United States, is a big thing. So I could only imagine like being in a completely different country and having to fight for, a penny more whenever people are only getting paid, 10 cents or something like that. So those two were pretty impactful for me. They were kind of like the base of my decision, because if you don't belong to any kind of country, you're not going to be able to get any kind of help. And if you don't have any money, or you're getting paid very poorly just because of the sex that you are, that's going to make a huge impact. Because think of how many like single mothers there are, or even single dads. I know dads get paid more, but they don't receive the same help because they're not a female. So they would have to be paid more while taking care of kids. Those were my two that I felt were pretty important.
So I went down through the list first and like read each one, and then I kind of went back through and picked which ones like really resonated with me. So I picked number 33. So being employed as a preschool or elementary school teacher without people assuming you will corrupt the children. I currently am a teacher and I'm in like a parochial school, and I didn't really like think about that. So it made me think that most of the teachers in my building are white and they're female. So there's not a lot of like diversity in schools, which that like really stood out for me for being a teacher. Like I never thought that would be something that I would be considered as privileged to have. Looking at some of my other ones, also like having work in the school holidays that coincide with like the religious holidays I celebrate. I didn't see that as privilege, but I guess like kind of digging deeper into it, it like stood out because all the holidays we celebrate are dominantly one religion. It's not every religion. So like President's Day, everyone gets off, but like the religious holidays, like for Hanukkah, or if there are different culture, they don't get those holidays off, so they have to like request that time off for that like special day, whereas I don't. Also, hold on. Having the culture of my ancestors adequately and accurately represented in the education system is another thing that we see as not as like a privilege, but again, thinking about it as from like an educator standpoint, a lot of our schools all teach like the same history, but there's always different versions, and it's like this version's correct, like it's in all the textbooks. So seeing that as being privileged really like opened my eyes. And even having like health insurance that I can afford. Um, I'm very fortunate that my husband and I are dual income, so we both have health insurance. But just thinking about how many people can't afford that, because they might be down to one income or different like situations, um, is also another real eye opener. Like it should just be a universal thing. Um, so kind of like going back through, and I picked like two of them were related to my job. The other two were not, but like having um a different mindset when I kind of went through after I picked my top two, really helped me like go through and figure out which ones I wanted.
You hear me? Sorry, guys. You can hear me? All right. Hi, my name's Andrew Grove. I have my background. I have a bachelor's in communication, digital media, and I have a CDL Class A. So, how the privilege factor comes for me, how I'm entering this conversation. My background, even when I was in college and now truck driving, I see many different people wherever I go when I'm delivering product. I'm a delivery driver. And to me, in different areas where I deliver in the major city, I don't really see anyone being treated unfairly in my eyes. I think a lot of people in my little town are treated equally, fairly well. But I have seen in the past that different minorities and female individuals can not have the same rights as males. My industry for delivery, I really don't see that many females because it's really hard work. But if you went over the road for truck driving, there's a bunch of opportunities for ladies, and they're trying to change that every day with our industry. And the industry is getting better and better, and there's always a need for CDL drivers. Class A, meaning I can drive a 28,000 pound vehicle or more. So to end my statement, I think everyone should be equal, and I like to feel like I've earned the privilege to work amongst people equally and treat everybody equally. Thank you.
Andrew, what privileges did you pick from that list?
Okay, getting to that, I had to find the list. Just one second. I have more. I'm sort of computer illiterate, so be patient with me, everybody. I picked 3 questions, and we're only going to do one question at a time, correct?
Yes, you pick 3 and then do each one separately. Yes, one at a time. Yeah.
Okay. I picked for my first one, question 25. Being able to see your partners immediately if in an accident or emergency. I would have to describe what I would do at a work setting. The first thing I would do would be call my supervisor on my cell phone and tell them my wife is in need of emergency assistance. And then I would also call my in-laws and my parents, and then I would make every effort to get to that location. But normally with driving truck, the supervisor would have to come out, take over the truck, and then I would be taken to the hospital to where my wife is. So my supervisor would make it very apparent and very clear that my wife is priority, and a family member would say my mother-in-law or my mother is a priority, I would make every effort to get to that location to be with them. Thank you. Or sister-in-law, I would be there right there in a heartbeat.
What's your other two?
Can you say that again, please? I'm sorry.
What's your other two privileges? You have two more privileges
Okay,
that you were picking.
Got it. Just let me get to the chat. Okay, the next one is being raised in an area with crime and drug activity. I did not grow up in a very nice area of my town. I think I remember this one's not too bad. My mom left her car on the street. That summer was a really bad summer, and they smashed out almost everybody's windows on everyone's cars one year. And then I saw my neighbor get beat up by a bunch of drug dealers one year, and my sister, I think it might have been the same summer. It blends in together after you get to a certain age. Drug dealer drove into my sister's car. So not every area that you grow up in is the greatest area, but you try to always look at the positives and look what's around you to make you a better person. And if you don't want to be in that area anymore, save up your money and try to move out. But over the years, you can't judge people. It just happens, and you just move on and learn from your mistakes. My next question, let's see here, is number 5. Having one or both of my parents have a college degree. Both my parents are educators. They have bachelor's in science, and my dad has a master's equivalent in special education. Then he has a bachelor's in special education. So my parents always put forth education always comes first, and trying the best you possibly can. And if college wasn't for me and I didn't care for it, there's always a trade school for somebody to take part in. There's always trades that people can do, like doing the CDL or being a mechanic, what have you. You know, you got to find your niche that makes you happy as an individual, and try to work with others around you to learn and grow from them as well, because they would have experiences that you've never had, and you can learn from them and better yourself as an individual. And let me check if I have any more questions.
Nope, you should be good.
I should be good.
Yep,
Thank
you picked 3.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, so the privilege that I picked was being a citizen of the United States. Just for the simple fact, that's a privilege that if you are not a citizen of the United States, it's a lot harder to get jobs. It's a lot harder for people that are coming into the country on visas and green cards and stuff like that. They don't have that option of staying here full time and being a citizen of the United States unless they take that test, because their visa or green card can be taken away at any time and they can be deported back. Also, immigrants that travel over the border, illegal ones that are trying to get out of their country and coming over. Being a U.S. citizen, you're not going to be deported from the United States. So that's the privilege that I chose. So the next question is, what on the list surprised you? What stood out to you most on the list?
I'm having like half technical difficulties, so you'll have to bear with me. Carrie, you'll have to go first.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So what on the list surprised you? Kind of made you realize?
There was actually a lot that stood out to me that I didn't like really think of. Morgan mentioned earlier about having access to multiple family planning options. I guess that one kind of like stuck with me the most, just because a lot of people have issues with fertility, and not having that access to being able to like adopt or doing IVF, stuff like that, it really like hit me. And even with like the news too recently, like with Roe versus Wade being overturned and everything like that, there's a lot of women health issues right now. And I don't feel like we should be having those multiple family planning options being accessible to everybody would be wonderful to have.
Andy, would you like to go? What on the list stood out to you? Like, which one made you really think? Unmute, please.
Thank you. I can't remember the number. It was something that had to do with sexual orientation. That sort of threw me for a loop. I think that should be someone's private conversation with said boyfriend, girlfriend, or spouse. I think that should be private between two individuals that love each other very much. I do apologize for bringing that up. That was a very different question for me. Thank you.
Okay. So I will go next. Are you good, Morgan?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. You can go.
So I was really kind of rocketed, like being younger and growing up in like the kind of like transgender community deal, or even just in general, like identifying different, if your name's Sam, it's a pretty unisex name, but you're identifying yourself as a male, but you're sexually oriented as a female. Maybe that wasn't the best example, but that kind of went along the lines of number 23. It says no stranger checking your identification or driver's license will ever insult or glare at you because your name or sex do not match the sex they believe you to be based on your gender expression. That kind of like threw me for a loop. It almost goes along with like what Andrew said, like why does it matter? What if, for example, like my mom and dad didn't want to know the sex, but they really liked the name, I don't know, Hunter, in my opinion, is more of a masculine name, but it can be unisex. So, what if they wanted to name me Hunter, didn't want to know the sex, that was my grandpa's name or something like that. And someone looks at me and goes, well, you're a female, you're dressing feminine, why is your name Hunter? Like, what does that matter? That's none of your business. And so it kind of went along with what Andrew said. A lot of stuff on there that shocked me was, people go in expecting there to be stereotypes to go along with stuff. And they shouldn't have to.
But what I was saying was knowing the feelings that one will be fairly treated and not grievance, harmed, or killed by police. I was stating that Black Lives Matter. Just with all that, George Floyd, I believe it was last year or 2 years ago, recently, he was killed just because of his race against different police officers. There had been a trial and everything. There's still an ongoing investigation as well, but they were punished. It's just something that really stands out to me because I don't see that. But like, if I would be stopped by the police, they wouldn't really question me as much as they wouldn't put me in handcuffs because of my skin color. But if one of my friends that is a different race or maybe a different color skinned may have different interactions, and their parents have to teach them differently than my parents when they're stopped by the police or anything. So that just really stood out to me more than anything. So the next question is, why do you think we choose money? We could have easily said that each privilege was worth a token and you have 5 tokens. What does the money represent?
I think money in this kind of plays into maybe not the unfairness, but the unequal kind of distribution of wealth. You know, the more money you have, simply put, the more money you have, the more you can get away with things. You know, you can, if you get thrown in jail because you were drunk and disorderly and you're in there for 10 days, but you have money, you can just pay your way out of it. You can pay, I don't know if it'd be a bail, but you could pay your fines, pay your bail, and that's that. But, you know, if you only have $50, then let's think about those 10 days that you're in jail. You can't buy yourself out. Who's going to pay for your kids if you have kids? Who's going to pay your bills because you're not getting a paycheck for those 10 days? And how are you going to pay your fines while catching up on your bills and making sure your kids are taken care of? That's kind of the biggest setup to me with money, because we have to pick and choose with it, what we can do with it, or what we will do with it, depending on how much you have.
I completely agree with Morgan. Our society has become money hungry. So how she put it is, if you have more money, you can get away with things. And that also comes off as being seen as privilege, because some families are always struggling. And that's just been like their family life, like not lifeline, but like line, where other people's are born into that, so they assume that they have certain privileges over other people just because they have that money.
Andrew, would you like to share your thoughts on the question? Unmute, please.
Can everyone hear me again? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. In regards to money, I don't think money is everything. I think the love of your family and people that you care about is a big factor. But I do agree with Carrie. I think, I don't know about the American culture, but in cultural things I've noticed on TV and stuff like that, people are becoming very materialistic. And I just don't feel like money is everything. It's nice to save your money, do the best you can, and having loving people that love you around you. And that's the thing that matters the most. And being part of the family environment and doing fun activities with the family. And it's always nice to have money saved up. So if you have an emergency with a vehicle, or you need to take care of a bill that you didn't remember, that just came out of nowhere, you have a cushion. It's always nice to save your money and be there for your family. Thank you.
I want to say one more thing, Barb, before you go, before I forget. This kind of reminds me of a situation that actually was kind of like close. It was some family friends. They were on food stamps, and or not food stamps, WIC, and her wick had run out. And she actually ended up stealing not like a whole thing of formula, just like they have like little pre-made stuff that you just like mix with your water or whatever. They're like little single uses. She actually stole one of those and got caught, and they were like, "Why are you stealing this?" And she looked at them straight up and said, I am out of wick. I'm out of wick. I'm out of food stamps, and my kid is hungry." And it was something just as simple as that. She wasn't stealing a $35,000 ring or something out of a case. She was stealing stuff because she didn't have the money or the financial stability through her whole entire, her whole situation. So it's crazy that, people are going out spending a couple $1,000s on new things, and there's people that, aren't being able to provide for their family and are stuck in pretty crappy situations. Because again, if you don't have some kind of money, or like what you said, Andrew, that something cushion to kind of boost yourself back up, you're not getting there. Sorry, that was before I forgot it. I wanted to touch on it.
No, thank you for sharing that. So why I think we choose money is because it can help us buy the privileges. It can help us get a car, because there is some people that they have to use public transportation. And money represents just more privileges than others do not get. Just working in the field that I do, I see this a lot every day. Some of my clients, they're like, we're struggling to pay our bills. And I'm helping them get assistance with that. And it's something that I don't necessarily have to worry about, that I have the money to pay for my bills. While there's others that are struggling to pay their bills and just for basic necessities, just like Morgan's story. She had to steal to feed her kid. So stuff like that, that's money represents some kind of privilege. The next question is, why do you think we gave each person a different amount of money?
I think this just pretty simply ties in with the last question of just, money can buy you things. I think the whole difference was just to see kind of also part of the diversity of what other people think is important. Pretty much simply put, the diversity to see what's going on, who chooses what. And I'm sure if we have, an even more diverse group, it would be even more different.
Completely agree with Morgan. It just shows us how diverse our society actually is, whether we realize that or not.
Everyone hear me? Okay, you can hear me? Okay. Oh, nope, I had the mute on. Damn. Okay, I'm unmuted. Sorry about that. In regards to the question, this is the best way I can answer it. In my experience in the workforce, most jobs you have to build your way up to the highest bracket. You start at the beginning, then you get a promotion, you get another promotion, what have you. Every job I've ever been at, it's been like a 3-tier system. And then you work hard enough, you get to that high bracket, and you do the best you possibly can. And that's my regard is a privilege. You work hard, you can get to things that you need in life to function, like groceries and different things you need to run a household. You just try the best you can at your job and be who you can be every day. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that they give us different money, just for the simple fact to teach us that that there's always going to be one person that has less privileges and somebody that has a lot more privileges than others. And it's something that we don't necessarily see, but we also, in the workforce or in our jobs, we kind of have started to see it more than we normally would. So the next two questions kind of run together. What have you learned from this activity? And then how does this activity and what you're learning from this activity translate into your job or work?
So this kind of almost does bring it full circle. You're right, to like, how this affected us. It again, opens up everyone's eyes. I think we can all agree on that. But I know for me personally, I have a social work job, so I see a lot of diverse clients. And I think the list, bringing it to my attention, kind of puts into perspective how some of those individuals may be feeling while they're not comfortable explaining it to me yet, because I'm sure it's a traumatic experience for someone to go through, a big change, like, not being recognized for who they want to be or something along those lines that they might not be comfortable talking about. But through this activity, I've seen that, it is in fact something huge that comes on just a small thing on a big list.
I don't think we realize like how privileged we are. So this list really opened my eyes. And I like we see it in small ways, but we don't really see it as being privileged. That everyone is diverse in their own ways. They live different lives, but just being like more aware of what's actually going on around us, and seeing that, okay, if we see something like unfair or if we see something as privileged, that we can like kind of stop and take a second to realize, hey, I get that I'm more privileged, but that doesn't like make me any different.
In regards to the question, I think a lot of people will try to get to that bracket of being, in other words, privilege. But I think in my definition of that would be comfortable. I think most people strive to feel comfortable to the point where they can do things that makes them happy, and they can do fun activities, but they realize they still have a roof over their head that they had to keep care of, and family members to take care of. People have to remind themselves every day that it just doesn't happen like that. You have to take the steps, try to better yourself, and try to be the best person you possibly can at home and at the workplace, because it matters for me when at the home the most. I could be the best truck driver I could possibly be, but I want to be the best husband and son-in-law and brother-in-law that I can be. Thank you.
So I've learned a lot through this from this activity, just through everybody else's views and opinions on everything, and just seeing what has opened their minds has also been an eye-opener, and I've been learning that. So this activity has shown me and learned a little bit more about different things, and I work in the social work field. So in my job, I see how some of my clients have more privileges than others. And it's just something that sometimes I don't necessarily see. And some of my clients they ask me certain questions, and I'm like, that's just something that I can't discuss with them. But seeing that there's different privileges throughout. So this activity was very eye-opening, and we learned a lot of important things, how some of us had 4 privileges to one of us having 1, and then how we picked our privileges, what kind of spoke to us and what surprised us, and why money has played a role in this as well, and then how money has affected us. So it was a great eye-opening activity, and I thank everyone for participating and sharing their opinion.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to learn.
You're welcome.